So the first question that I got was, do you need a real estate agent or a real estate agency to buy a home? And, there's a ton of, misconceptions out there about how it works when you hire an agent to help you find a home. So
well, there we go. Those commercials just get better and better all the time, John.
I know, it's about time we switch it up, huh?
How you doing, man?
Good. How about you?
Great. Been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. It's good to be back here.
Winter was back.
Yeah.
Now hopefully it's gone.
Hopefully
And-
not too fast though.
Well, yeah, and looks like we got some more ugly coming this weekend.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
More rain.
Yeah, a lot. The way it sounds. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'd be nice if it stayed out west.
That's the last thing I need right now. 'Cause
Yeah.
one of my rental properties basement's been flooding. So.
Oh yeah, boy. I've heard a lot of that,
Yeah.
and it's always a good indicator when you get on social media and you see hardware stores saying we're going to get more sump pumps.
Yeah.
Don't
yeah.
worry about it. They're all gone now, but I'm on my way to get more. That's not good.
Dehumidifiers.
Yeah. I pretty much lucked out. My house, and I live right along the Red Lake River. My house in 97, and this was, of course, before I moved there, they didn't get anything, basically. And the basement was not finished. So, of course, I finished it.
Yep.
Really nice.
Yep.
And then 2 Septembers ago, we got all that rain. I happened to be in Alaska, and my basement flooded bad.
Yeah.
Didn't flood in the flood of 97, but it floods when you get 15 inches of rain in a matter of 5 days.
Did you have the sump pump backup coverage?
I did.
Sump pump failure coverage?
Yes, so I got a little bit out of the deal, but it was all brand new carpet, brand new walls, new bar, new fireplace, everything. So I had to pull all that out, had to cut 2 feet of sheetrock off all the way around the basement. It was just a massive headache.
For all the listeners out there, if you've got a basement, pay for that extra sump pump failure coverage, because if something goes wrong, you're out of town like you were. I was out of town when that thing happened in 2019 too, and my breaker tripped, or my GFI tripped that my sump pump was on, and got water in the basement. And yeah, that coverage saved me, and it's saving me on this rental property too. So I strongly recommend having that, especially if you've got a full basement.
Yeah.
And
there's nothing worse than walking down the steps in your stocking feet, because of course my basement's carpeted.
Yeah.
And taking that first step to squish, and it's just like, oh no. I know my dogs don't pee that much.
Yeah, no, that's when you wish it was that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mentioned, social media and things like this. Now, let's do a little Q&A here, okay?
Yeah.
Social media has taken over the world. I mean, we do a lot of things on social media now, and I know you do too at Berkshire Hathaway.
Yep.
But do you get a lot of questions asked to you on social media? Because a lot of people aren't afraid to ask a question on their phone if they don't have to talk or be face-to-face with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But do you get a lot of questions regarding, realty on social media?
Yeah. And I've got a few that I'm actually going to answer here on this podcast.
Okay.
And if the viewers out there have more questions, leave them in the comments below. Send me a DM, and I can cover it on a future video or on a future podcast.
Okay.
I love answering questions and hearing what people are curious about. And these were some really good questions. So the first question that I got was, do you need a real estate agent or a real estate agency to buy a home? And there's a ton of misconceptions out there about how it works when you hire an agent to help you find a home. So you do not need to have an agent or an agency to help you buy a home, but in most cases, it's not going to cost you any more to have an agent or an agency. So you're going to be working with an agent who's under an agency typically.
Right.
It's not going to cost you any more to have that when you're out shopping for a home, helping you through the whole process. The reason for this is whenever a home goes on the market, regardless of which company lists it, the sellers have already agreed to pay whichever agent represents the buyer who ends up buying the home. They've already agreed to pay them a set commission. So that's how the buyer's realtor gets paid. It's not the buyer who's actually paying them in addition to like their down payment and stuff. It's coming out of the seller's proceeds. So by not having a realtor and thinking that you're going to save money, by not having a realtor. That's not actually the case. What's going to end up happening is if you don't have your own realtor, you're probably going to be calling the number on the sign for every house that you're wanting to take a look at.
Sure.
You're not going to have anybody giving you advice. You're not really going to have anybody on your side up until you do decide to offer on a house. And in that case, then you're just going to be working with the agent who also represents the seller. So it's going to be a dual agency situation. And they're still going to get paid that buyer agent commission. So you're not getting any better deal on the house. The only exception to this is if you end up buying a for sale by owner, which is super unlikely, in which case you don't know if they're offering a buyer agent commission or not. But in most cases, if you have a buyer agent and you're trying to buy a for sale by owner, they're going to pay that buyer agent's commission.
Okay, so say I'm thinking about moving to Grand Forks and I drive around and you, of course, see for sale signs,
Yep.
Call this number. So instead of driving around going, wow, I would kind of like to look at this house, what's the number on that sign? You call them up and you go through this. It's just way better to get yourself a real estate expert first and say, look, Jon Broden, I want to move to Grand Forks. Work with me.
Yep. Well in advance, when you're thinking of moving to Grand Forks, talk to people you know in the area, get recommendations. This is how I get a lot of clients, is past clients of mine referred their friends to me. Check out reviews online. This is another great way. Make sure somebody's established, make sure they have good reviews online. Also knowing the right questions to ask them if you're interviewing an agent to see if they'll be the right fit for you. Make sure they're a full-time agent. Make sure they've got some experience. Make sure that they specialize in the area that you're buying in. Get in touch with your agent ahead of time. What's going to happen if you just decide that you don't want an agent? You're just going to call every sign that is in the yard of the house that you're interested in. You're going to be explaining your situation over and over to all these different agents.
Sure.
They're going to be showing you these homes, but you're going to have to call a different agent for every house. The same agent can show you any house. Like if I'm your buyer's agent, I can show you any house regardless of the company that has it listed. Or the agent who has it listed. So rather than you having to call this guy over at Greenberg, this guy over at Prairie, this guy over at Oxford, this gal at Berkshire Hathaway, this person at one of the other companies, and having showings with different realtors at every house and trying to organize it all yourself, call me up. I set up the showing for every single house, and I tour you through every single house. I know your situation. You're not getting asked the same questions over and over. You're not having to explain your needs and wants to 5 different agents. And you've got somebody working for you behind the scenes, giving you advice on what you need to be doing on your end. And you can make sure you get stuck with a good person. You don't want to end up with whatever agent you end up working with by accident. You want to be intentional about it. Ask for recommendations, read reviews, pick the person you think is going to be best.
And too, when you got to answer all these questions all the time, if you've got yourself a realty expert already, a lot of times you'll forget certain things when you're answering the same questions over and over over again. You already know the information. They can call you up and say, oh, Jon, by the way, I forgot to tell you, we're also looking for, and you're going to know all that.
And I stay super organized. So I have files for everybody I'm working with. I know exactly what they want. I'm able to notify you of new listings as soon as they hit the market. If you're counting on Zillow to stay informed on the market, Zillow's usually late to the party with their information. They're usually inaccurate with their information. So I can get you the information straight from the source at the quickest possible time. Better than any of the consumer websites will be able to.
Okay.
And I'll hear about new listings that are coming up that might fit your needs before they hit the market. So then you might even be able to be a step ahead of the game, which you're not going to get if you don't have an agent at all.
Okay. Any other big questions, common questions? Yeah,
this is another common one. So the question is private renting to own, pros and cons. So renting to own, basically what renting to own is you're going to rent a property from me, and I'm going to apply a portion of the rent that you're paying towards like your purchase. So you're basically getting a portion of the rents back. Nobody's really going to do this because that's basically like me discounting the rent for you, even though I'm taking on all the responsibility of owning the property. I have all the risk. So you're not going to get anybody who really wants to do this. Why would I do that as a landlord instead of just renting it to you? What you will find occasionally is an option. So an option is where you agree with me on a price ahead of time. So right now, maybe you agree to buy the property that you're renting from me for $190,000. You're going to buy it a year from now when your lease is up. You live in the house, you take care of it. You usually pay me something for that option fee because the house could be worth $200,000 in a year, and I've already agreed to let you buy it for $190,000. So you've locked in your price. Maybe you just need to get some more work history under your belt before you can qualify for a mortgage. You need to repair your credit or something like that. This is more common. Contract for deed is not as common, just because, first off, to do contract for deed, you need to find somebody who owns a place free and clear. If I have a mortgage on a property, my bank's not going to allow me to sell it to you contract for deed, because they don't know anything about you. It's easier for you to just get your own mortgage. The people who ask for contract for deed are typically people who aren't able to qualify for a mortgage. So contract for deed is not very popular either. Sometimes people will use a purchase option and rent to own interchangeably, but they're not the same thing.
Sure. I actually knew a guy down by the Twin Cities that made a lot of money on a bar.
Yeah.
Big bar. Had the volleyball pits and sand volleyball, all this stuff. And he made a lot of money on it because he sold it 4 different times for contract for deed.
Yeah.
They'd be paying on it for 2 years, and all of a sudden they default, and you got the bar back. And he did really well on that. But what a headache.
And that stuff might be more common in the commercial world.
Sure.
In the residential world, it's much less common because if you've got a decent credit score, you've got the income, you're able to purchase the place. Why would you not just get your own mortgage and buy the place from me?
Yeah.
Straight up. Because I'm not going to be able to give you as good of an interest rate as what the bank's giving you. It'd be foolish of me to do that.
Yeah.
Another question we got. So, how to pick out a house, what to look for when you walk through it, good and bad. So this is kind of a broad question, but I can give you some basics of how to make a good purchase. So first off, you need to think of 2 things. Is it going to fit your needs where you're going to be able to stay in it for the length of time you need to stay in it for it to be a good investment, which is usually 4 to 5 years plus. So make sure it fits your needs. Make sure you're not going to outgrow it in 2 years and then need to sell and buy something different, because that's riskier when you're purchasing rather than buying something you can live in for the long term. Make sure it fits your needs. Make sure it fits your budget, and then start thinking about resale value. So mainly what people look to me for advice for is resale value. Some things you want to look for is looking for a home that's in a nice neighborhood, maybe looking for a home that's not the nicest house in a nice neighborhood, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe it could use some fixing up in a nice neighborhood. Those are going to be great investments. Looking at something that's going to be easy to sell when you do go ahead and sell it. So not picking the most unique, weird home ever, because this is just, it takes a more specific buyer. It means there's a smaller market for the home when you sell it, and you probably won't be able to sell it for as much as, what a home that appeals to the masses is going to sell for. So making sure it has a functional floor plan, of course, then you want to also look at like the long-term expenses of the type of home that you're buying. So like if you're paying, for something that's move-in ready, but it doesn't have a new roof and it has older windows, you want to look at that stuff. You want to look at the age of the roof, age of the windows, age of the furnace, age of the AC, siding. Ideally, if you're not the type that wants to make it a big project, you want to get a home that already has maintenance-free siding, maintenance-free windows, newer roof, newer furnace. It's just less expenses out of pocket. That's going to, hurt your return on investment. Not buying the nicest house in the crappiest neighborhood. That's a big no-no for the resale side of things. Not buying something with a really unfunctional layout. I don't even know if that's a word, but a bad layout that doesn't work well and is not very standard is going to be a tough thing to sell. And then look for those like big expenses. If you're getting a home for a good deal that needs new siding, roof, windows, furnace, that's one thing. But if you're buying a fairly move-in ready home that needs that stuff and you're probably paying close to top dollar for it, that you want to, that's probably not something where you're going to be able to get your money back out of those upgrades that you're making.
Okay. Got time for one more if you've got one.
Yeah. So older homes, red flags, green flags. So this gets a little interesting. One of the toughest things with old homes is to watch out for is like foundation issues and like warped bowing floors. These are going to be expensive things to fix, or they're not even going to be possible to fix. So when you go to sell an old home, and if it has those warped bowing floors, it's going to be much harder to sell, and it's very hard to correct this. So this is something to watch out for. Another thing with older homes, a lot of people prefer central AC and heating. And it's more common for larger, older homes to have boiler heat, which means there's no ductwork. So you would have to get ductwork installed to get central air conditioning. This is going to be quite expensive. Look at the same things that we just talked about: roof, windows, the age of the heating and cooling system. You want something where the plumbing and electrical has been updated, where that's not going to be an issue. You don't want something that has fuses. Ideally, you'd want something that has a breaker panel.
Yep.
Neighborhood's going to be more important too, because there's some older neighborhoods that are great, and then there's other older neighborhoods where the average sale price is quite low.
Right.
So you just want to be careful of which neighborhood you pick when you're picking an older home, because new neighborhoods, they were all recently built. So the worst house on a block in a new neighborhood can only be so bad, because it's still only 5-10 years old. But in an older neighborhood, the worst houses on the block can be pretty bad. When you're talking about houses built around 1900. So check out what the neighboring homes look like. Are they being taken care of? Is it mostly rentals? Is it mostly homeowners? It's going to affect your value in the long term. So that's the advice I would give to you if you're into an old home. Old homes can be great. They have character that newer homes can't duplicate. There's certain areas in town that I absolutely love the older homes, like Reeves, El Monte. The east part of the Riverside neighborhood. Those are some of the coolest neighborhoods in town.
They are. I got a good friend that lives in El Monte, and I love that neighborhood.
Me too.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, Jon, maybe they do have a question on social media, how would they do that?
Yeah, leave a question below in the comments. Send me a private message. There's a lot of different, you can find any way to get a hold of me, and I can answer your questions on a future video, on a future podcast. So,
okay, how about phone numbers or anything?
701-213-5428. Don't forget to give me a follow on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube. Check me out on all the social media platforms.
All right, we will be back again on Friday.
Yes, sounds
all right,
good.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. That's your Berkshire Hathaway bi-weekly podcast with your realty expert, Jon Broden. Jon will be back Friday right here on GFBS.